Well, we're going to start out this morning with a little interaction. So I want to ask you to interact here a little bit this morning, and we're gonna do a little exercise here. So I actually want to invite you to speak out loud a word as we go through this. So I'm looking for some response from you all this morning. So I want to take a look at some pictures this morning and ask a question after each picture. What stirs in your spirit or soul when you see this? Okay? So let's take a look at the first picture. This is what you may face if you're traveling this week on Thanksgiving holiday somewhere. So what stirs in your spirit or soul as you look at that picture? Oh, man, you guys got a lot of response. All right. Frustration, I heard. What else? Audiobook tapes. Waiting. Concern. Whining. Complaining. Patience or lack thereof patience. Or just patience? You're going to learn patience. We have an optimist here this morning. That's good. What's that? Exhaustion. Are we there yet? Right. And so, I just want you to recognize and feel what's going on in your spirit when you see that. Okay. Now let's look at this next image. So, what stirs in your spirit or in your soul when you look at this valley of flowers? What happens to your spirit? Calm, peace, beauty, allergies. I heard serenity. This was a lot easier at 8 o'clock, so I'm trying to pick it all up here. Anybody else got something, one word that comes to your mind? Joy, space, beauty. Okay. What's that? Grace. Okay, let's try another one. This is something you may see every day during the week. You walk to your desk or your cubicle at work. What stirs in your spirit? Annoying. It's clean. It can't be my desk. All right, yeah. Stress. What's that? Thankful that I have a job, right. Another optimist in here, so good. What's that? The chair is missing. You haven't heard about the new stand and work thing that's going on now? Okay. All right. What? Busy. How many people thought to-do list, tasks? My own space, responsibility, stress. What's that? Challenge. And work can be fulfilling. And it can be, in a lot of ways, fulfilling, so we don't want to discount that. Yet most of the time when we think of this cubicle that we go to every day, it becomes very, kind of plain and kind of lifeless. It can feel like you're a part of a machine, so to speak. So then compare that to this image. This is a sunrise from the top of Mount Sinai. And when you get up in the morning and you see a sunrise, what stirs in your spirit? Calm, God, beauty, thankful, a new day, hope, opportunity, wonder, timeless, faith. Okay, one more example. So take a look at this. Frustration, automatically, yeah. Virus. Lack of human contact. Homework, yeah, that's good. What's that? Knowledge, information, opportunity.
How about that little symbol, spinning?
The little spinning symbol. Is that a patience issue again? Are we coming up with that? Email. What's going to be in the email? What's going to be on here? So we do that. Notice that sometimes what we do with our screen is we put images of creation on our screen. Are you one of the people that do that? So you don't want to look at that. So to kind of somehow redeem it, we put a nice picture on there, a picture of family, or a picture of somebody that we love. See what I'm saying? So we're trying to bring some of the things of God into that place. And then compare it to this one. Imagine you go out at night and you see the starry sky at night. And when you go out at night and you see the starry sky, what stirs in your spirit? What's that? Expansive. You feel insignificant, right? Awesome. Eternity. Be still. Creation. Wonder. Sleepy. Right. So I think you're getting the obvious thought here that there are things that drain us and drain our spirits, and there are things that restore us and renew our spirits. Now, here's the other question I would ask you. How much time every day do you and I spend in traffic, looking at computer screens and at desks, compared to how much time we spend watching sunrises or sunsets, or looking at fields full of flowers, or looking up at the starry night? Think about how much time you spend each week doing those two things. In fact, I would imagine that there are days, I know for me, there are days I go through, I don't ever see a sunrise or a sunset. I don't see fields full of flowers. I don't see a starry night. I just see a computer screen, a car, and a cubicle or a desk. And that if that's all our life is about, day after day after day after day, what is that doing to our souls? Because the Psalm 136 is about giving thanks for God's creation. And there's a line that's repeated there over and over again, which we repeated, and it actually goes on for 26 verses. The one line is repeated. Now, I hear people complain about worship music being repetitive. And you can find lots of worship music that is repetitive. A psalm is a song. It was a song of worship, and so some of the most repetitive worship happened in the ancient psalms. They were compiled over 800 years of worship. And this Psalm 136 is repetitious on purpose. And the reason for the repetition in music and in worship is because we need to be reminded. We need to remember. We need to walk out of worship and remember that God's love endures forever. Because when we walk out into the world, that will strip us of that. Does that make sense? That this world will strip us away from God's love. And so we need to constantly be reminded. And the psalmist is saying, we need to remember this more. And this is so important that we're just going to repeat it over and over and over again so it sinks into us. That God's steadfast love endures forever. Now, when they went to worship at the temple in the Old Testament and they used the Psalms, there were actually this is part of what's called the Psalms of Ascent, which means that they were ascending the steps to the temple. There were 15 steps that they went to ascend to the temple. And so you think about that. That's like having a worship service with 15 songs, hymns in it. And then when they got to the top, they would sing Psalm 135 and 136. So when they got to the top, when they got to the temple, it was God's steadfast love endures forever. In fact, let's read that together. For his steadfast love endures forever. Now, this is bonus for you this morning. You're going to learn Hebrew right now. And if there's one Hebrew word that I would have us all know and remember, it's this one Hebrew word. And it's easy to remember. And I want you to remember this word because it's the word that's translated steadfast love. And the Hebrew word used here is the Hebrew word hesed. And I can't even do it with that Middle Eastern guttural, but it's got a little guttural in the H, like a hesed, So yeah, let's all try that. Hesed. Right, you got it. Right, you got it. Strong. It means the steadfast love. It's God's steadfast love, God's hesed for you and for me. And that is a different type of love because God's hesed doesn't ever run out. It's steadfast. It endures. It never stops. It never ceases. It never runs out. How many times has our love for others run out? I know my love has run out at times. It's run out. God's love never runs out on us. Never gives up on us. It's the God's hesed. It's more like a covenant. We often make a contract, but God's covenant love goes like this. When I'm in a contract, I might say something, well, I'll love you if you love me back, right? Or if you love me this way, then I'll love you that way. So we are contractual and transactional in our love and in our relationships sometimes. God's Hesed love, God's covenantal love, God's steadfast love says, I'm going to love you even if you don't love me. I'm going to keep loving you whether you ignore me or not. I'm going to keep loving you whether you worship me or not. I'm going to keep loving you. My love is steadfast. My love will endure. My love for you will never run out, even though your love for me will run out. That's Hesed. Isn't that good news? God's Hesed. And God once says that we have to be reminded of that. The psalmist is saying we have to be reminded of that again and again and again, because how easy is it to forget that, right? It's so easy to forget that. And so the psalmist is saying there's some things that remind us of God's Hesed. And one of the things is actually, I'll share an illustration from Yellowstone. Hopefully it's my last Yellowstone illustration for the year. Right, it's a little shaky there. I can't say never. So I'm in Yellowstone National Park. I'm touring the geysers, and the geysers are going off, and there are all these thermal, geothermal things going on, and I can't explain them all or how they work. And I'm walking around, and I'm going by this geyser's erupting, and there's a park ranger there talking to a group, so I stop and listen, trying to learn a little bit about what's happening. And the park ranger says, we're standing on a supervolcano. Well, that's nice to know. And then he goes on and he says, the supervolcano could go off in the next 10 minutes or in the next 10,000 years. But when I heard 10 minutes, my first thought was get the keys, grab the kids, put them in the car, let's get out of here, right? Because if this thing's going to go off in 10 minutes, I want to be out of here. And then he said, or it could be 10,000 years from now. We don't know. Well, I need to know. This is important stuff to know, but we don't, right? We don't know. And in that moment, it made me appreciate the gift of the day. Because we don't know. And what it made me realize is that, this supervolcano could go off and I won't be it, but this day is a gift, the gift of life, this simple day. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I know this day is a gift from God. And every day is a reminder that we are on this planet and creation continues and the sun comes up and the sun goes down and the supervolcano doesn't go off, is a reminder of God's Hesed for you, for me. It's Hesed. Steadfast love for you. This gift, this day. And I think we need to be reminded of that all the time because we'll forget. The other thing about the psalmist is saying in this psalm is that there's another gift that God uses to remind us of God's steadfast love. And the other gift is the gift of creation itself. The gift of creation is a reminder of God's Hesed towards us. God's steadfast love, the fact that creation continues to do what creation was intended to do, the order of creation continues to go on, and God sustains it, is a gift of God's Hesed for us. And that's why when we looked at those pictures, did you notice what stirred in our spirits? Because our spirits, our souls were made for God, the things of God. And the world will take us away from those things. And so we need these reminders of God's Hesed for us. When you think of nature photography, who's the most famous nature photographer that you can think of? Ansel Adams. Everybody gets this every single time. Ansel Adams took beautiful black and white photography, and it's all over the world. It's a very famous photographer. He believed that his purpose in life was to reveal the beauty of God's creation to other people. That's what he believed. Here's a great quote from Ansel Adams. He said, sometimes I do get places just when God is ready to have someone click the shutter. That he felt his purpose in life, that God just had arranged those moments for him where he was just there at the right time to capture the beauty of God's creation so that he could reveal it and share it with other people. And I think in doing that, what he was doing was he was reminding people of God's Hesed. That's what the psalmist is saying. That we need to be in touch with those things in creation because that's what helps restore our souls, renew us, recreates us. And so we need these reminders of God's hesed. Because I think of our souls like a sponge. And that's why this is up here. So you guys are probably wondering what's going on up here. So I thought about this, and I crawled under my kitchen sink, and I found this sponge. Now, if you go crawling under your kitchen sink, you'll probably find a similar sponge. But it's dry, it's hard, it's not very flexible. Sponges are supposed to be flexible. Sponges are made to absorb water. But if it never absorbs water, it becomes all dried out and wrinkled like this sponge. Do you ever feel like your soul's like that? You ever feel kind of like it's dried up, maybe shriveled up, like it's not doing what it was supposed to do? This sponge was created to absorb water. And so if I never expose it to water, it'll just stay dry like that. So if our souls are like sponges, what are they meant to soak up? Here's what I think our souls were meant to soak up. Right? I used this as a children's illustration last night, so you guys get it too. I find that some children's messages are just as good for adults, so that's what we're doing here. And so if I want to soften that sponge up, if I want to fulfill its purpose, if I want to fill it up, if this is our soul, then I've got to actually put it in God's love. I've got to not only put it in, but I've got to immerse it in God's love so that it will fully absorb and fully fulfill its purpose. And then when it's pulled out, it's just dripping. It can't even contain all of it. And that's the thing about God's love. His steadfast love, His hesed, never runs out. It keeps going. You can't outlove God, is what part of that. If you immerse yourself in God's love, you will be dripping with it. And here's the other thing, because the other thing that's going to happen is life is going to squeeze us. And what happens when life squeezes us? If we're full of God's love, what comes out of us? Love. God's love, right? And then when we're wrung out by life, what do we need to do? Dip in again, right? Get filled up again. And this is what the psalmist is saying, is that our souls are like this sponge. And if we don't constantly go back to the source, if we don't constantly be dipping ourselves and immersing ourselves in God's love, we'll just be dried up and hard and inflexible. And that's part of what God's love does to us. It restores us. It renews us. It restores the soul. And our souls were made for that. They were made for God's hesed. God's hesed. You know, this week you're going to have some free time. I hope you're going to have some free time. I hope you get some time off from work. I hope that you find time for recreation. But let me clarify what I mean by recreation. Recreation, there are some things we do for recreation that do not restore our souls. So what I mean by recreation is the word recreation, restoration. When we're in recreation, when we're recreating, what we're doing is we're recreating our souls with God. So what is it that you're going to do with your free time this week that will recreate you? Because I know you've been looking at computer screens and going to cubicles and driving in traffic. You and I have been doing that, and we do it a lot. So what are you going to do this week with your free time to recreate you? To allow God's hesed to flow through you, to immerse yourself in the steadfast love of God this week. Hopefully it's with your family, or if you're with your family, maybe you'll need some of God's love. So that when they squeeze you, God's love comes out. What are you going to do? Because God is in the recreation process. God's all about recreation. Noah and the flood is a story of God's recreation. But the ultimate story of recreation is when Jesus was sent into the world. When God sent Christ into the world, He said that when you and I believe, accept God's grace in Jesus Christ, when we accept God's love expressed in Jesus Christ, His steadfast love, Christ was love in the flesh. That when we accept and have faith in Christ, God's love is poured out into our souls. And it says in the New Testament that we are new creations, recreated. And I hope that you know that God is in this recreation business in you and for you. And it all is about God's hesed. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. For His steadfast, you say it with me, for His steadfast love endures forever. Amen.